You might think you know what a medieval castle is, but you could be completely wrong about them. Firstly, they did not look like Disneyland. Some buildings that claim to be castles do look like Disneyland, but those, such as the famous Neuschwanstein in Germany, were built in the 1800s and have nothing to do with medieval castles. Some fantasy castles have these diagonal stone beams on them, but those are flying buttresses used to support vaulted ceilings and allow for huge windows in cathedrals, not castles. Castles didn't have these sorts of over-the-top embellishments because their purpose was not to look pretty but to be defensible. Castles were military fortifications. They had arrow slits instead of giant stained glass windows. Their walls were very thick and their roofs were far more modest than their fantasy counterparts. They also wouldn't typically be so dark and ominous. Whitewashing walls was very common in the medieval times, and many castles were whitewashed. The idea that everything medieval was dark comes from ruined buildings that were left to wither into their current menacing form. Their interiors were similarly brighter than the stereotypes, featuring painted walls, ceilings, and furniture. Fantasy won't tell you this, but they weren't always a sprawling complex of towers and walls either. A great number of them were just a single building, called a tower house. Castles did sometimes have moats, but they would only be filled with water if there was an actual water source flowing into them. Dry moats were much more common. It might surprise some to hear that a lot of castles were wooden, but it's true. Wood was cheaper and still worked fine for defense, so a lot of poorer castles were wooden. I wish Hollywood would depict some more interesting castles, but that's never gonna happen. Also, I built this tower house in Minecraft, and I think it looks pretty cool. Subscribe for more castles.